Aloha friends! It's been a while. As you notice, we probably haven't made a video in 3 months or so. And so today we're here at the property. It's very sunny, nice day, and we wanted to come on and just share with you some things that have been happening in the last 3 months with us and with the property. So this is kind of an update video. So the first thing, last time we talked with you on camera, face to face, as soon as we were done, we got an email from our draftsman, and he told us that he will be able to work with us now.
And now we had been on a wait list for like 6 months, or at least it was predicted to be 6 months before he could even get to drafting our property. And he wrote us and said, hey, you're next in line. I'm ready to begin your house. Make sure you get me all the specifications and everything that you can. And so we then shifted our focus from working on the property. We took some time away from the property to try to figure out all the ins and outs of the house plan.
Right.
And so we did that, and just about shortly after we completed the house plan, or at least our concept, and submitted that for him to work, then we began to notice quite a bit of changes were taking place in the States, all kinds of new restrictions and all kinds of things. And so, things started getting a little bit shaky because obviously, to do this big project, develop this land, to build a home, all of this takes sort of some long-term commitments. And even though we are working on a plan to build as we go, free of debt, still you got to have an income and all of that. So we were praying and trying to figure out what should we do, and it's just been a challenging time trying to figure out how we can adapt, if we can count on still having employment. There's been a lot of challenges.
Yeah. Now, the challenges came more or less in the last month or so, or month and a half. But before that, we had some blessings. One of them is right behind us.
Yeah, so as we've mentioned in previous videos, we use a lot of wood chips and for our planting of our trees and all of that. And so we were running very low on our supply, and we have an agreement with some local arborists that occasionally, when they're in the area, they could drop by and give us the mulch that they have available.
Yes.
And we were running low, and we had been asking, checking in with them for like some months, hey, when you guys have some, please stop by and bring it, because we're just about out.
Well, we were pretty much out. We had 3 big piles, if you saw in some previous videos, and we were completely out because we just put it all over the place, all over the trees and plants. And it seemed like we were waiting for a while to get any, and finally we got like 3 more piles of brand new mulch, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, I think it was an answer to prayer, I guess is my point.
Definitely. Another positive thing we've been doing, we had a really nice summer, and we kind of knew things would get a little shaky later on in the year with the virus and everything. So we wanted to make sure that our kids had a nice summer, and so we did some family activities. We went on vacation, and we also got to camp here on our property for the very first time. And that was a lot of fun with children. And yeah, we're just always, every time we come here, we're wondering, when are we going to come and live here? But it's probably going to be a little bit before we get there. Well, all the while, it's summertime, so a lot of sunshine, and grass is growing like crazy. So Ryan's been keeping up mowing and weed eating. It's just been a lot.
It seems like the grass can grow a foot or more in a week, at least in certain areas with good soil.
Yes. We also had our landlord's visit.
Yeah, so the home that we lease, we have the property to ourselves for the most part. Our landlords, there's two homes on the property, and they've been away for, I think, something like 20 months without visiting. And they came for a couple weeks, and that we had a really nice visit with them, and they have been a real blessing to work with, and so that was very nice.
Yes, but what I was going to mention is that they mentioned to us that they actually are planning on moving back to islands, and so which means they'll be moving into the house right next door, which is fine. You know, they're very nice people, and we don't mind living next to them. But I think still we kind of feel like we need to speed things up and try to get on our own property soon. So it's kind of a little bit of a push, you know, for us, right?
Yeah.
So let's see what's been happening with the house. So it seemed like we were going to work on the house 3 months ago, but then what happened? Why haven't we?
Well, oddly enough, even though the draftsman said, hey, you're up, it's your time, nothing seemed to happen.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we didn't push for anything to happen because we just felt this uneasy sense that you know, the ground underneath our feet wasn't real stable, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And we were just praying and trying to ask God, how should we adapt to all of this? Because, you know, unfortunately here in Hawaii, building a home is very expensive, and you're talking even just a modest home, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to just construct the home itself.
Right.
And so it's like, oh man, like, you know, we tried our best over like a year and a half to to design a house after so many iterations that would be both modest and something we could do out of pocket.
Something we actually need.
And yet something that would meet our needs for years to come. And so...
Yeah, it's been challenging. I mean, I have probably 20 drawings of the houses, and they're all different. And we're kind of always going back and forth, like, oh, are we going to build like, you know, a modest house, or we're going to build a little more comfortable house, or we're going to build a shack, or we're going to build a garage and move into it. And it's like, and every week it seems, especially lately in the last month or so, every week or every day some new news comes up with, you know, some things that kind of shake our ground a little bit more, and we're not sure, are we going to be able to build a house? Are we going to be able to move on this land? And then we keep thinking back. I mean, if God gave us this land, you know, with His providence, why would He not let us build here and actually move in and live here?
Well, there's something else that, you know, it would help to mention, because, you know, you guys might not understand without this little bit of information. And that is that even though our lot is very big, you know, this is like an 11-acre property, the county is very strict about what you can do with your land as far as building.
Yeah, you can't just build a shack and move into it.
You can't, you know, you have to, everything is strictly permitted. In a lot of ways, it's like California. If you do build something, then you've built the one residence that the property is allowed to have, and then you can't like then say like, oh, in 5 years now we have more money, let's go build a bigger house next to it, or I mean, it's just very strict. So it's kind of like part of the challenge of us trying to think through, like for like 18 months, like what in the world are we going to build whenever we build, is that you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Like, sure, maybe you could like add a room at some point in the future, but it's pretty strict, and so that makes it very difficult. And sometimes we would go to the county and say, hey, we have this idea, what if we built like a detached garage with a bedroom and a bathroom, and then later we come and build the house next to it, and they'd say no. And then we'd say, oh, what about if we do this? And they'd say no. And then we'd say, what about that? And they'd say no. So it's kind of difficult to build something that is going to meet all your needs for many years to come, and do it with cash as you go.
Out of pocket, yeah.
And do it when you don't know, honestly, because of the economy and because of all the craziness going on in the world, you don't know how long, if you're going to have employment, you know, next quarter.
Yeah.
You know, all these things become extremely challenging mentally to figure out.
Right. Now, just recently we had a blessing where our draftsman actually contacted us again, and he said, I'm sorry, I was very swamped with other people's houses, and now you're actually on the top of the pile. So, but actually what happened, we drew a certain house, right, and we submitted it to him, and then he was waiting for 3 months before he even emailed back to us. And in this time we were, you know, like we said, thinking, what should we build? Should we still build that house? Should we build something smaller? So we actually contacted him. I told Ryan, you better write him, because, you know, we don't want him to start on that house and then tell us like, hey, what about this house? And then we basically say, oh, sorry, we are building a different house now. And so we wrote him, Was it last Sunday?
Last Sunday morning.
Yeah, last Sunday morning. And he wrote us back and he said, perfect timing. I'm glad you wrote me because I'm just putting you on top of my pile. I was just going to draw your house.
Like today, like that day,
That
last
day.
Sunday, he was
So
going
that
to
was
start.
Providence. So we actually right now decided on a smaller house, just strictly what we need, nothing extra, no extra guest rooms, no garage. And we're just trying to stay really modest and see if we can, do that with the money we have and maybe, if we still have employment, the money we will have. But
well, I'd just like to say that this new iteration of our house, in the last week that we submitted,
yeah.
We shaved 1,000 square foot off of the house, which we already thought was, it was nice, but it was still modest.
Yeah.
Because we see that the times, I think, necessitate that.
Yes. So we're hoping to work with him now and see if we can draft that house, and we're hoping that we would get some things ready, like the cesspool, or is it septic tank we need to do?
It's a septic
tank, and we're hoping, and I don't know, I think our goal was to maybe start either at the end of this year with the foundation or at the beginning of the next year, right?
Right. But of course, there's more challenges.
That's
arise.
what we're hoping for, but we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what tomorrow holds. So we're kind of living one day at a time here.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, like what to share, because there's like so many things you could say. But one challenge that came up this week is a bridge failure, which is a big issue. So we live on the coast here in Hawaii, and between these two towns, there's like an hour drive, right? In that, what's maybe like 30 miles, but it takes you an hour to traverse the coastline. So in this little bit of coastline, there's like 52 bridges on the primary road, and then there's sort of like a secondary backup road, and there's
because we have a lot of streams coming from the mountain.
Streams, and they created gulches, and so there's all these bridges. Well, one key bridge appears to have some problems, and so the county has shut it down for anything but limited passenger vehicle use.
Right, so no semi-trucks. Yeah.
So what that means is that until they fix it, if you want to get any kind of construction stuff out here, like cement trucks and rock trucks and backhoes and whatever else, if you want to get any of that stuff to our property site, you have to drive something like 2.5, 3 hours around the island instead of the 20 minutes it normally would take.
Yeah, it seems like obstacle after obstacle.
So,
but we don't believe that these obstacles are for us to just quit and not do anything.
Yeah, we keep going. We keep going. It's just, it's just some things delay us, right?
Yeah,
and
we know what we need to do.
And the county says that they're thinking that that's going to take like 4 months to fix, but when they say that, that usually means like a year.
Yeah.
But who knows? We just gotta, adapt, always pivot, adapt, find a way, and keep moving forward. But a bigger concern at the moment is regarding employment.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness, it's like I could talk for probably an hour on that topic.
Well, why don't you talk briefly about it?
Yeah.
Ryan here works at the hospital, and the hospital is busy as ever, right?
Yeah. So I've been working, throughout the entire pandemic, right? In fact, I've been there every day without missing a day. Well,
I just want to say that throughout the whole pandemic, another big blessing is that we have never gotten sick. Our entire family, and even his parents, no one got sick, and we're just really thankful for that.
I am thankful for that, yeah. And I certainly am exposed to a lot and bring a lot of stuff home, So anyhow, long story short, the governor has issued some mandates, and then the president has issued some mandates, and that has required a lot of people to do a little bit of soul searching, including us, and we've determined for quite a number of reasons that we will not participate. In other words, we will not comply.
Will not comply, yeah.
And so, we have religious reasons, and we have constitutional reasons, and
many reasons.
Many reasons. But so that may bring about an end to my career as I know it. But you know,
where the door closes, there might be another one opening. So
yeah,
you know.
And you know, a lot of times I just am sad to see individuals. You know, like let's say for example, a number of people will comply, or a lot of people will comply with the mandate, and some of those people will think that it's in their best interest to do so. What I mean is that they believe and buy into the remedy that's being offered. And hey, you know, if that's the way you feel, you know, you certainly have the right to do with your body what you feel you ought to do.
Right.
However, for those of us who have other reasons not to choose the same path, you know, those well, what I'm trying to say is this: if you don't have control over basic things like what you do with your own body, you are not free. Okay, despite what the government tells you. They may lie to you and tell you this is a democracy and whatever, but I mean, I certainly didn't vote for this. So they didn't consult me or my neighbors. And so that doesn't sound like a democracy to me, not to mention the fact that this country was never intended to be a direct democracy. In fact, our founding fathers, you know, distinctly opposed that idea, and they set us up as a constitutional republic. For those of us who have forgot that, because it's easy to do so, because the talking heads on television will all tell you democracy, democracy, democracy. A democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Okay, let's just be blunt. But a constitutional republic is set up that some people have all people have inalienable rights. Okay, and if you have forgotten that our country was set up that way, just think about the Pledge of Allegiance that you know, did day by day throughout school as you grew up. You know, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. I didn't see democracy in there. It was a republic. It was a constitutional republic which has protections for the minorities. And so they are inalienable rights. And so anyhow, long story short, we are seeing tyranny arise around the world.
Freedom's being taken away.
And although to some extent, at least here, we haven't seen direct force as yet, what we have seen is coercion of a most egregious nature. To try to put people in difficult situations where they have no choice but to, you know, relent, give in. And these are some things that are very reminiscent of what is spoken of in the Bible in Revelation chapter 13 about the coming mark of the beast crisis. Now we do know, and I will, you know, clearly state again, that this is not the mark of the beast crisis, but this does appear to be a precursor,
a stepping stone
to the mark of the beast crisis. And so that is very concerning.
Definitely setting up the stage for it.
And you know, another thing that comes to mind is that really frustrates me and is greatly concerning to me is the religious community. Large numbers of pastors, even within my own denomination and other denominations, are essentially working as agents of the state to try to influence their parishioners and to also coerce or even persuade, in some cases, their people to follow this agenda, and that the government is right in doing so. You know, in fact, pastors will love to preach about Romans chapter 13, about the Christian's duty to obey the government. And you're going to be hearing Romans 13 a lot more in the months and years to come, especially as we eventually lead into the mark of the beast crisis, which the Bible foretells. But I want to remind you of something. Jesus, in the Bible, he told us to give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's and unto God that which is God's. And I can assure you that your body is not Caesar's. Okay? The Bible tells you in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, chapter 3, it tells you that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and it belongs to God.
You're not your
not
own.
even to yourself. And it does not belong to Caesar, and there is no point, or there is no rational or logical excuse for Caesar trying to take control of your body and what you put in your body. And so, and we see this in also lived out in Daniel chapter 1, where Daniel and his fellow princes were taken to Babylon, and the Babylonian government society, they tried to impose upon them this certain diet, and they knew what God had told them, the dietary, God had given them dietary restrictions and things that were so that they could honor him in their bodies. And Daniel and his friends, they did not just consent to whatever the government said. They said no. They understood that their body was the temple of God, and that God had said, these things you do not put in your body. And so they refused. Now they politely and kindly refused, but they did nonetheless. And their refusal and the muscle, the spiritual muscle that they gained in standing for what was right, although it could have cost them their lives, that eventually gave them increased strength, so that later on, when the big test came, later on in Daniel, you see this image set up, and everybody was told to bow down and to worship, which it's very incredibly similar to the mark of the beast crisis. And what did they do? They again stood. So one standing in smaller things does certainly give you the ability to stand in the larger things. And we know that Daniel and his three friends were not the only ones there that were the princes of Israel there in that climate. We know that there were many others, and there were many others who conformed, right? They conformed in the issue in Daniel 1 when it came to what they put in their bodies, and later they conformed again
in the worship.
In the worship. And so that's what we're going to see played out in the future. We're going to see again a very similar scenario. So what I'm saying is if your conscience is telling you that this is the wrong path, that this is something you shouldn't do, and yet you allow these coercive measures to basically influence you to do what you believe is wrong, that is a dangerous thing, because you are dramatically weakening your ability and your resolve to stand for what is right. As some of you may recall, in a recent video, we discussed the mark of the beast crisis at some length. And so I'm going to put a link in the description below to a video that we shared where you can look at, from the Bible, from the testimony of the scriptures, what is this mark of the beast crisis that is coming? Not what's here right in front of us just yet, but what's coming in the not too distant future, and how you can know from the scriptures for a certainty what it is and recognize it when it arrives. And in light of all of this, and in light of the signs of the times that are all around us, this gives us, greater impetus to try to get ourselves onto our property where we can be independent for the necessities of life. And that is important because when you are in a bad situation, let's say, for example, like the current employment mandates, right? When you're deeply in debt and you have children that are depending upon you, and you're thinking, if I lose this job, how am I going to support my family, and all of these things, you are at much greater risk of making wrong decisions out of fear, okay? But when you live off the grid and you have the necessities of life, food, water, shelter, and you're out of debt or nearly out of debt. And all of these things, you are on much more solid footing where you feel that you can stand for what you believe in. And that's going to be much more important in the coming mark of the beast crisis, because we are told that at that time, that fear of wanting food and clothing is going to be a major reason why many people who know what's right are going to go to the wrong side, to their loss of their eternal life, just so that they can provide for their families. And that is not necessary, because we know that this time is coming and we can prepare for it now. We can get ourselves on a solid footing where we are not dependent upon the government or upon our jobs or whatever it may be. We're dependent upon God only. And when we're dependent upon God alone, we can have greater resilience and greater courage to take a stand for what we believe is right.
Well, friends, that is all we wanted to share with you for today. And we sure hope we can resume our videos on more regular basis than we have been doing. We also realize that a lot of you are going through similar situations and going through your own country living journey with its own difficulties and setbacks. So if you would like to share with us, we would be happy to hear from you either by email or through the comment below. And we'll see you guys next time in our video. And until then, aloha and God bless.